What is up guys, welcome back to Mainly Movies, the channel where we talk about, well, mainly movies. So finally I'm doing my Breaking Bad complete series review. Now warning, spoilers, major spoilers throughout the whole TV show. I highly recommend watching the show, then maybe coming back to the review and we can have a little chat. But no, you've been warned. Major spoilers. So anyway, this review is going to be kind of different. I'm going to be talking about each season individually. Basically going through all the events in each episode, then giving them a little bit of a review at the end. So anyway, let's get started with Season 1 of Breaking Bad. So Season 1 of Breaking Bad is really good, is one of my favorites, simply because it introduces all the characters perfectly, introduces Walter perfectly, Walter's family, Skyler and Walter Jr. It introduces Jesse very well, his family, and basically his life working in the meth industry. And the villains of the season are Emilio and Crazy Eights, and we get introduced to Tuco right at the end of the season, but I'll get into that in a minute. We're also introduced to Hank Schrader, who is Walt's brother-in-law, who's Skyler's sister's husband. Basically, he's a DEA agent, and that creates a lot of tension and a lot of comedic scenes as well, because we have someone who's in the meth industry and someone who's basically in the DEA industry. So that creates a lot of funny and intense moments. But no, this season probably has... This and the second season probably have the most comedy, I reckon, out of the whole series. Simply because, well, the threat level isn't that high, so they kind of can have that sort of comedy aspect, I guess. And it works very well, and throughout the season, the comedy still remains, but it kind of gets darker as the show goes along. Anyway, the major events in this season, basically Walt gets cancer at the start, joins Jesse in cooking meth. He obviously makes the most purest meth because he's a chemistry teacher. At the end of the season, we're introduced to Tuco, which at the end of the season, there's a big deal between them, and basically Tuco ends up killing one of his men, and it's like really intense. And then it just kind of ends and we have to wait till Season 2. So overall, Season 1 is a really, really good introduction. It has probably one of the best pilots I've seen. Probably the best Season 1 I've seen of a show. It is really, really good. Introduces the characters perfectly. The drama and the comedy aspect is really good in this season. So yeah, let's get on to Season 2. So basically Season 2, we're introduced to Jesse's new girlfriend Jane, I think about halfway through this season. But we're also introduced to Saul Goodman, who has his own TV show now, Better Call Saul, which I have Season 1 right here, but I haven't actually watched it yet, still in the wrappers. Anyway, he's a good character and he gets them involved with all these different people and he helps them out a bit. Anyway, the season opens with basically Tuco dying, getting killed by Hank. Hank is trying to track down Jesse Pinkman. He ends up coming across Tuco because I think he looks through his registration of his car or something and tracks down his car, and then he ends up finding out about Tuco. Tuco pulls out a gun, he just kills him straight away, and that kind of gives Hank a bit more character and gives him a bit more PTSD in certain scenes of this season. But basically this one has a major event at the end of this season. Basically the character Jane doesn't really like Walter and Walter doesn't really like her. But anyway, at the end of the season she ODs on heroin and she's basically in a bed. Jesse is like high and he's like passed out, and basically she's next to him and she's vomiting and she chokes on her own vomit basically, and Walt's just kind of standing over her and he could stop it but he doesn't end up stopping it, and that kind of creates a lot of tension between the two, and that's why I feel like the turning point between their chemistry kind of goes away and they kind of split up a little bit throughout the show, and which isn't bad, but I feel like the first and second season really has a focus on Jesse and Walter's chemistry until that point. But basically her dad, Jane's dad, is an air traffic controller, and basically he gets really sad at one point and he isn't focusing on his job, and two planes they collide and basically they crash down on Albuquerque. Yeah, that's how Season 2 ends. So basically Walt's indirectly responsible for a lot of people's deaths. Anyway, just to review Season 2. Season 2 I enjoy. I find it really good. The drama is where it kind of kicks the drama off a little bit in Season 2. But it also kind of changes a lot of things. It changes Jesse's character, it also changes Walt's character. Now in season 3 we get kind of introduced to Gus. I'm not actually sure if he gets really introduced into season 2 or if it's season 3. But anyway, Sol introduces Walter to Gus. Gus is very professional, the way he does his business, and I really like this character. We also get introduced to, I'm pretty sure we also get introduced to Mike Ehrmantraut and some other characters. We get introduced to Victor, who I'll talk about in season 4. Anyway, in this season we get to see these two kind of Mexican guys who are Hector Salamanca's nephews, I'm pretty sure. Hector Salamanca was in the scene with Tuco at the start of season 2. He's like in a wheelchair with a bell. He becomes pretty important, so yeah. I mean, if you're watching a spoiler review, you pretty much know. I'm just kind of recapping everything. Anyway, basically, those two guys end up shooting Hank in season 3, I believe it is. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's season 3. Anyway, they shoot Hank. Hank doesn't die, but he ends up killing them both, and he's kind of left scarred from that. So yeah, there's that. But in season 3, it's Jesse's kind of struggling with drugs because Jane died, and he's got a lot of weight on his shoulders, and he's just really sad in this season. And I didn't mind that. He doesn't really do a lot until kind of season 4. So Walter is basically getting really involved with Gus, and at the end of this season there's a kind of big turning point because Gus doesn't want Walt cooking for him anymore. So basically he gets this other guy, Gail Bedecker, who we see throughout season 3. Basically Walter has to work with him because Jesse is just sad all the time and he doesn't actually do any work. So basically Jesse gets involved again, and basically Gus wants Walter and Jesse dead because, you know, because a whole bunch of events go on, and so they're going to kill him, and they basically say the only other person that can make pure meth like you is Gail Bedecker. It ends with this cliffhanger where Jesse runs to Gail's apartment, has a gun to him, and shoots. We don't know actually if he actually shot him because it's kind of left ambiguous. Anyway, season 3. Season 3 is pretty good. Actually, I got to talk about one episode in particular. There's one episode called Fly that a lot of people didn't really like. I rather enjoyed the episode Fly. Basically, the plot of the episode is there's a fly in the lab and they need to get rid of it because they can't have any contamination, and the whole episode is contained in that lab. I like the episode because it brings out a lot of drama. It has probably it's probably the most drama-related episode. It's directed by Rian Johnson, who directed Star Wars Last Jedi. Anyway, that episode has a lot of drama because it's just Walter and Jesse in the lab, and a lot of their feelings come out, and it's a really kind of dramatic episode. But a lot of people didn't like it because it's very slow and they're in one room for the whole episode and it's very different. But I mean, I rather enjoyed it. Anyway, season 3. Season 3 was pretty good, but I feel like season 3 is a bit more of a bridge from season 2 to get to season 4. I still overall like it. I like it a bit more than season 2, to be honest. Season 3 it's pretty good. I enjoy it. Not much really else I can say about that season. Anyway, to season 4, which is my favourite season. So season 4 opens with this episode called Box Cutter, one of the most intense episodes there is. So basically the episode opens with Gail and Gus, and it's a flashback when they're kind of building the lab. Anyway, Gail puts a box cutter down, and we see that later on in the episode. So basically, like I said, in the ending of the 3rd season, Jesse ends up killing Gail. And so Mike basically has Jesse and Walter held hostage in the lab, and throughout most of the episode they're in the lab, and basically we think Gus is going to just like straight up kill them, or like is going to hurt one of them. Victor, who is Gus's like right hand man, ends up saying that I'm going to be cooking the meth now, blah blah, and he starts cooking it anyway. So Gus comes in, he puts on his like suit, like the little hazmat suit, and he gets all prepared, and then he grabs that box cutter and just stabs Victor in the neck, and it's like one of the most brutal scenes in the show. Victor's just gasping for air, and like blood's just spraying on Walt and Jesse, and they're just kind of like scarred by what's happening. And then we find out it's because he was cooking the meth, basically. And yeah, that was pretty intense. Season 4 is really good. Jesse's kind of gotten over his addiction to drugs. Later on in the season of season 4, basically Walter and Gus have this basically face-off, no pun intended, because that's the name of the episode, the last episode. But basically there's a face-off between them two and a feud, and it's really, really intense. And there's so many times throughout that season where Walter literally could have just killed Gus, or Gus could have killed Walter. Anyway, Mike and Jesse go on these road trips, and their chemistry in the season is really good. They start off kind of hating each other, classic like road trip stuff, and then they end up kind of enjoying each other's presence. I think season 4 has one of my favourite episode openings as well, or not openings, but there's a scene in season 4 where Mike has like a silenced gun. He goes into like this warehouse and he kills all these people. I don't know if that's season 4 or 5, but that's an awesome episode. Anyway, there's a lot of tension in season 4 and is probably my favourite season out of all of them, but it ends with an awesome ending. Basically, Jesse goes to these rehab sessions and he meets this girl, and basically the girl is addicted to drugs, but when he finds out, he tries to sell these people at rehab drugs as well. He's kind of going against the rules. But when he finds out that this girl actually has a kid, he doesn't want to do that, and he wants to get involved with her, and they basically end up dating, and I liked their chemistry. It wasn't as fleshed out as him and Jane's relationship, but it's still pretty good, but you can tell that he cares about this kid. Anyway, the kid gets poisoned, and they're in the hospital, and there's a lot of stuff going on there, and you don't know who poisoned it, and because we see them creating this ricin they're going to kill Gus with, and they think it might be the ricin that the kid ended up getting somehow. This goes to the ending of the season. Throughout season 4 we see Hector Salamanca's backstory a little bit, and the cartel's backstory, but there's one episode which kind of focuses around Gus, where basically we see Hector Salamanca's son ends up killing Gus's friend, and that's why they don't really like each other. Anyway, I feel like that episode is really good, and it kind of brings to the last episode where Hector basically really hates Gus because he ends up killing his son, and Hector has nothing left. It's literally just Hector, and he's kind of toying with him. He has like the little amulet thing, and like Hector's just so mad at him. Anyway, Walter uses Hector to kill Gus. Basically, he plants like a bomb device in his wheelchair, and he says, "You're the only way that I can kind of kill him." So Gus, in like a nursing home as well, Gus walks into the nursing home and is talking to him, and he's like, "You wanted to see me, you ratted me out to the DEA, basically." And then he just keeps hitting the bell, and then the bomb goes off, and we get that awesome scene where Gus is like, "No!" and then stands up and then blows him up, and then Gus walks out, and like the camera's over here, he looks fine, and you're like, how did he survive a bomb? And then he's kind of fixing up his tire, and then the camera turns around, you get to see half his face is just like fucked up, and that's why they called it Face Off. But what I heard, an interesting fact, what I heard about that episode is the reason why they made it like, he kind of looks like Two-Face from like the Batman character. And the reason why they did that is because his character is kind of two-faced. His character is professional, and you see him as like this professional business owner who owns this Los Pollos Hermanos restaurant chain, but he also is a very intense criminal. And his death was well earned, but that's not the biggest thing in the last episode. The biggest thing for me in the last episode is we actually find out Walt actually poisoned that kid, and Jesse doesn't know, but it was kind of for Jesse's own good. The kid doesn't die though, so yeah. So overall, season 4 has a lot to offer. It's my favourite season of the whole thing. Like, season 5 is really good, but season 4 is so intense and is so great, and it's so rewarding watching Gus die like that. It's such a great season, so yeah, that's personally my favourite season. Anyway, season 5, let's get onto that. The very last season, which is split into 2. Season 5 part A and part B basically is what I call them. So both of the parts have 8 episodes, leading it to 16 episodes in total. We kind of get this flash forward in time of Walt with like a full beard, and he like goes back to the house, and the house is all like broken down as shit, and yeah, we don't really know what that is. He has like a big LMG in his fucking trunk, and we don't know what all that's about, but then we kind of find out later on in season 5. First of all, throughout, I don't remember much about season, like the first part A of season 5, besides that Walter basically is like the new drug lord. He's basically the new Gus Fring. Yeah, I don't really remember much. All I remember is the ending of the last episode of part A, which is Hank is on the toilet, and basically he's like looking, for something to read, and he finds out that there's like a book which has Walt Whitman, and there's like a flashback to him and Walter in like this, basically in this room. He's helping Hank find out like who the criminal is, and he finds like a Walt Whitman book, because he finds all about, they go through Gail Bedeker's house, and he has like the Walt Whitman book, and he ends up figuring it out. And then so in season 5 part B, Hank knows, and there's like a lot of tension, and it's so intense, and basically he knows, but he can't arrest him yet, and he's like, you're going down, man. It's just really intense. Then there's this kind of drama. Jesse ends up working with the DEA. Jesse ends up saying to Walter, we have your money, because he stashes like a whole bunch of money. You know, he stashes a whole bunch of money, and he goes really insane. We get to see him at his most insane, basically, and Skylar's literally afraid of him. And oh yeah, and Skylar in the other seasons, there's a lot of stuff with her, but I didn't really feel like getting into it. But basically she ends up knowing about the meth like within like season 2 or 3, and she ends up like kind of helping him in a way. She ends up opening up a car wash to launder his money. But anyway, so he grabs all the money and he buries it, but then they say that they found the money, and because that's his whole reason for getting into the meth business is to get money so he can support his family after he dies and he has cancer. Like that's his whole plan, and they're gonna like burn all his money. So he goes there, and it leads on to the episode Ozymandias, where basically they arrest Walt. You think they're gonna arrest him, but he called up these guys, which is Jack, Todd's dad or uncle or something like that. I think yeah, it's Todd's uncle. Todd is this character that gets introduced earlier on in the season. He's not a very good character. He ends up killing a kid. He's pretty shit. Him and this other character, Lydia, like my least favourite characters, as well as Ted Beneke, who I don't like as well, which is like Skylar ends up cheating on Walt with him in the earlier seasons. But anyway, basically they end up coming with all these guns, and Gomez, which is Hank's partner, and Hank, they've arrested him, and they get in this firefight, and basically they kill Gomez in Ozymandias at the start, and then they end up killing Hank, and it's just like a sad, sad episode, because Hank is like one of my favourite characters. Hank Schrader is one of the best characters in the show. Jesse's like, so basically in the episode, Jesse gets captured by Jack and Todd and all that, and gets put into this cage, and they use him to like cook meth. Anyway, Walter kind of gets revenge in a way, and we find out why he's got that LMG, but he goes back and he goes to Saul Goodman's friend who knows how to get rid of your like identity and start fresh. Basically he starts fresh, and it cuts to like a year later or something, and like the house is all fucked up, and he's got like a beard, and that's like the flash forwards. Basically he goes to Elliot and Gretchen, who are like these grey matter. They invented this company with him like before the show. Like we only see it through flashbacks, but basically there's like a bit of backstory with them. Anyway, he goes to their house, says, you know, you're going to give all this money, like my money, to my family, basically because they end up running this like meth charity business. Anyone who's been involved with meth, they give you money, and basically he says it makes sense coming from you. If I give them money, people are going to know it was me, and you know I'm going to die or get arrested. So basically he gives them the money so they can give his family the money. Then we get to the final episode, which I think was in the final episode. Anyway, the final episode is he talks to Skylar, and it's very sad and depressing, but then he goes to Jack's place, orders a deal with Jack, creates this awesome contraption, which in Mythbusters they've even busted the myth, and they've said that it can work. But basically he puts the LMG in the trunk, and it's on this device that moves left and right, and when he presses the button, it like when he presses the button on the key, it shoots. Anyway, he shoots, he grabs, like pretends like he's in a fight with Jesse, grabs him, puts him on the floor, but really he's just like covering him. The gun just like shoots everyone down, blows them up. Bits are flying everywhere, people falling off. Todd ends up surviving it, but then like Walter gets shot, but you know he still lives. Jesse ends up grabbing like Todd and like strangling him with his handcuffs. Walter says like, here's the gun, kill me if you want, and then he says no, do it yourself, because like the first time Jesse doesn't have to take anyone's orders anymore. So Jesse gives him the gun. Walter kind of goes into the meth lab and he falls down. He's kind of at home, but then you get this awesome scene with Jesse driving off, and he's like, yeah, and he's crying because he's finally free, until we get to El Camino. But he's finally free, and he's just screaming, and he's probably the happiest we've seen him since like season 2. So basically that concludes season 5. Overall, season 5 is really, really good. It's really intense. Once you get to that final episode, it just like it makes complete sense. But yeah, overall the TV show itself is is amazing, one of the best TV shows ever, as you can tell by all the merch everywhere. I love this show, and you definitely need to watch it if you haven't. But if you haven't, why are you watching this? Because it's completely spoiler review. Anyway, for those of you who have watched it, I would love to hear your opinion in the comments below on each episode or on the TV show. So yeah, leave that in the comments below. So guys, thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Stay tuned, and I'll see you guys next time.